So he just asked me, so where do you want to take this business?
Yep.
So he says, I looked at him, no flinch in his eyes.
Yep.
No flinch in my eyes. I told him I want to build $1 billion business in Africa, for Africa, by Africa.
Right.
So this it's the first time it sort of got him like, huh?
Well, a very, very warm welcome to the Goldmine Show. As always, we are very excited just to bring this show to you. We want to keep reminding you that we'll be your greatest cheerleader. We will never quit reminding you that there is greatness on the inside of you and you cannot quit on it. You've got to keep fighting on and bringing out the amazing greatness that you truly want to remind you to follow us on the Goldmine Show on Facebook, on YouTube, as well as on Instagram. And let's continue building a great community that believes in the greatness on the inside of us. Today's show is an amazing show, man. I mean, I've just looked forward to just bringing this man on set. He's got an amazing story. You will be inspired just as much as you will learn loads and loads, my friend. I didn't know the pharmacies could turn out to be technology guys. But well, we've got one on set, and maybe I just let it out there. I don't know whether too many knew that he's meant to be on pharmacy and all of that stuff. I'm so excited just to bring founder of a couple of companies, two particularly, 3 Mice and also Cellulant. Great man, great man, great man. And I know there are a lot of guys doing technology in banks across the industry that are products of Cellulant. And therefore, without any further ado, it's my joy and my honor to bring none other than Mr. Njoroge. What's up, my brother?
Thank you very much, Dennis, for that lively intro. Makes my life sound incredibly interesting.
And it has been, man. It has been, man. It has been.
Yeah,
it has been. I mean, your life has been one of those that has both directly actually and indirectly, impacted very many lives. In fact, I dare say there are many people who've enjoyed your brilliance without ever meeting the man.
Thank you for the compliment.
Good to have you on the show, man.
Good to be here.
Doing all right?
Doing very well.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Look, man, I just want us to go back to who this great man is. Ken Njoroge. Who is Ken?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, interesting. Who am I?
Yep.
So I think I'm first a guy that really loves the continent.
Right.
I also have maybe a very strong sense of structure, strong sense of values that, from my journey, you probably figure out where they came from.
Right.
And we also believe that, when you do something, do it really, really well. Like
Correct.
I fundamentally believe that.
Right.
It's, to the extent where my friends don't enjoy me in chamas. Like I'm not a chama member. We can't sit and discuss plots and so on.
Right.
Why don't we do something really big?
Correct.
Like I believe it is my philosophy. That's who I am. So a strong lover of Africa.
Right.
A strong believer in excellence.
Right.
And a strong believer in the values of just being trying to be a good human being.
Yep.
Trying to find God.
Correct.
And just be a decent human being.
Correct.
And do whatever it takes to make that journey.
Right.
And so on. That's who I am.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting. You talked about the chamas, man. I mean, it's either you go big or you go home. Man.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. You've been in technology for a while. And I must just salute you, really, for the amazing work you've done across the continent. But I just want to go back to where it all began. Have you always been passionate about technology? Where did this whole technology bag catch up on you to eventually become an entrepreneur within that particular space?
Yes. Look, it's very interesting because I actually ended up in technology by mistake.
Right.
But interestingly, so the other day I was sitting down with a friend of mine. We were in high school together. We were desk mates in high school.
Right.
And we had been in touch on and off. And he said to me, Ken, I've watched your journey the last couple of years.
Right.
And everything that, I've watched you live the life that you always talked about when you were in high school. This was back in many years in a school called Menengai in Nakuru.
Nakuru County, right.
So when you ask me where it comes from, I hear that a lot. And I meet people even from primary school, and they listen to what I do, they say, I'm not surprised. So I think there was some parts of me from very early on that were interested in doing and doing the kinds of things that I ended up doing in terms of scale, impact, and so on and so forth. And so when I came out of high school, came into Nairobi, I grew up in Nakuru, was brought up by a single parent.
Right.
So
As a lone kid?
Yeah, no, there was two of us. My sister is 10 years. My younger sister is 10 years.
Okay.
My junior.
All right.
So huge gap. So in a sense, I was the only mature kid for a long time.
Right.
My mom was super strict.
Right.
So I would say that by the time I left my mom's house,
Yep.
I was beaten upright and mortal fear of being caught doing something. And it that shapes you in very interesting ways. Today,
right.
if I sit in a bus, if I like I'm in a bus,
right.
The moment somebody older wakes up, I look around to just make sure that if there is no other seat, I know what I'm doing.
Right.
Because in your mind, you've been wired. It's like, let not your mom catch you.
While you're seated when another person is.
Correct.
Right.
So I was generally very well shaped.
Right.
And that almost became who I was.
Correct.
Instinctive, strong sense of values, and being upright and so on and so forth.
Correct.
So when I came into Nairobi, and also driven for excellence. So I think my mom was very clear that you cannot, number two doesn't fly.
Right.
You clean a house, she will come in, swipe her finger under the seat. If there was dust there, like that's shoddy work. You just redo the stuff.
Right.
So when I came to Nairobi, Nairobi was very intimidating, right? Like in Nakuru, we spoke Kiswahili. Everybody in Nairobi spoke fluent English,
right,
and so on. But I was very clear that, okay, so this place is very intimidating, but I can outwork anybody.
Yep.
I was driven to really be a first-class student, so I can get my head around any subject, and so on and so forth. And these were the tools of my competitiveness.
Correct.
Eventually, of course, that course, led me to Strathmore. I think we were chatting a little bit earlier. After high school, I had 2 years break before university, and I was admitted to University of Nairobi to study pharmacy.
Right.
So going into Strathmore was very formative because I was a good student, strong values, high sense of order, and love for Africa and struggle. Because I was wondering, why do we struggle, right? Like, why do Africans struggle? Like, why?
Yet we're endowed.
Yes, yet we are endowed and so on and so forth.
Right.
So I was determined that maybe there was a path actually in which, you could come from any background, and I represented that fact, that with a strong value and strong work ethic, that you could actually make something out of it.
Absolutely.
So this was always my attitude to life. When I went into Strathmore, I discovered computers. And we had a lot of lecturers that were out in the field, so they also introduced us to the stories of Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and so on and so forth.
Right.
So by the time I was done with Strathmore, I was generally very clear that, hang on, there are other people in the world who it's just the work of their mind, the work of their hands, and the hard work that they put that create really great companies in the world.
Right.
And I'm like, hang on, I think we can do that.
There's something interesting about this one.
And besides, these guys, they were starting these companies when they were 19. That's like they are just like
your age
me.
at the time.
Yeah, just in another different part of the world.
Right.
So it had become very clear that maybe this way is actually one of those things that you can do to actually prove that it can be done.
Right.
Like, this is what excellence looks like.
Correct.
Right? In this world, in the new world of, away from high school, away from my mom's house. So I ended up but the way we were trained, go to school, get good grades, go to medical school, go to pharmacy, go to engineering or whatever. So
the big five professions then.
Correct. So Strathmore was temporary. This was just...
It was just managing the 2 years.
Correct, yeah, because I used to play drafts in the kiosk. My mom did not like that.
Like a lot of young guys.
Yeah. My mom was like, now this guy is going to play draft in the kiosk at Avuta Bank.
Kabisa. Or hang out with the wrong guys.
Yes, let me send him to Nairobi.
Right.
Then there's this nice institution called Strathmore.
Right.
I can't afford it.
Yep.
But I got a scholarship.
Right.
Fantastic. So that was a good plan.
Oh, you got a scholarship to Strathmore.
To Strathmore. Yeah,
Right.
we couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
So 2 years, I finished that. It was killing time, remember?
Right.
So I went like, momentum.
Yep.
Okay, let me go and kill time. But of course, that killing time, inspired my mind and my heart in
Right.
very interesting
Right.
ways. Then I post that, went to University of Nairobi. Now, University of Nairobi.
But in the meantime, the 2 years have given you something that has been fascinating.
Yeah. The 2 years, they made a profound change in me that was irreversible. It was at the time, I did not understand it.
Right.
Anyway, so I resumed University of Nairobi, and that's a different universe. So pharmacy is a very rigorous course, and it's very medical oriented in the first 1 year, and I think a good part of the second year. And I knew I didn't want to do medicine.
But it also means you must have done very well on your high school then. Pharmacy is not for everybody.
Yes, absolutely. I did quite well because our school, Menengai, we generally took like 4 people to university out of 200.
Right.
And I was one of those, and it was never in doubt that I'll make it to university.
Right.
Like I was always top of my class.
Right.
So went to pharmacy.
And even the slots nationally that you get for pharmacy were not that many.
Yeah, it's a combination of, so I was very good physics, chemistry, maths. I was a sort of first class student in those areas. So making it to pharmacy was really prestigious. Everybody, even in the university, basically you say, so what do you do? I said, no, I'm doing pharm. They say, what? I want pharmacy.
Yeah.
Wow. It's like
top of the class, man.
Top of the class.
Absolutely.
So this was the thing.
Right.
But then there was a big fight going on in my mind because, okay, look, at that time, I don't know what it is now, but at that time, University of Nairobi was chaotic. The living halls were dirty.
Right.
The lecture halls were dirty, broken tables and so on. Actually, now I realize that because in understanding myself, I can't sit in a room when the paintings are, even in someone's house.
Right.
If I sit in a house and the paintings are not straight,
it bothers you.
It bothers me, and
Right.
sometimes I ask for permission to just
see whether we can do something about it.
Yeah, so I think so I was maybe part of me was trained for order, right? Like at home, it was fairly orderly. Like
Back from how mom did that
From
back then.
mom's house was you could spot it from the outside
Right.
because when you cleaned the house, you cleaned everything from the window panes. That's
Right.
how, at some point, people just says, just come to the place. It's the cleanest house.
Yes, it had that reputation.
Yeah, people could see it from the outside.
Wow.
So going to this
Then you go into this institution.
chaotic, classes don't start on time, classes get cancelled, nobody knows what's going on and so on. And by the way, I'd come from Strathmore University. Strathmore is incredibly orderly.
There we go.
So
it was a contrast.
Yeah, so that disconnect for me became a real problem. And I couldn't reconcile. I'm like, how? It's like we are the best of the best. How is this working? What is going on here?
Right.
And I think it affected me, also coupled with the fact that I came from Nakuru, coming to university, the social life, the networks, parties, and so on and so on. It was interesting life. Kid coming from Nakuru and seeing all this stuff.
Yeah.
So all of that stuff mixed. I ended up failing my first year.
And then look like this partying guy.
Yeah, that was a culture shock for me.
Yeah.
Because I've never failed. I've always been on top of my class.
Right.
So
and for the first time, you have a failure
for the
now.
first time, go back to first year, right? Because I failed a lot of medical units. I did well in maths and so on and so forth.
Yep.
But all this anatomy and whatever it is that require a lot of studying and so on. I never loved those subjects. I failed in those things. I failed enough of them that the dean just told me, sorry, go back to first year.
Man,
So
how
this
did
was
you deal with failure at that point?
it was very difficult. I could not
For
quite
the
understand.
first time.
Yes, I could not quite understand it. And so anyway, I gather myself. But I mean, by the way, at this time, there's this great conflict that's going on. I'm like, man, this is such a different universe from that thing that ignited my heart
At Strath.
for those 2 years.
Right.
And then you're like, okay, so I'm failing, but is it quitting? Like, my passion is here. Is this quitting? I'm not a quitter.
Right.
Whatever it is. So I did that, then went back to pharmacy school. First year, did another 6 months. But in these 6 months, now this battle is going on. Eventually, I think that battle led me to depression. So for some time, 1 month or something, month and a half. I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know it was depression at
Right,
the time.
right.
But I basically just could not stay awake. Like I just was always asleep.
The entire time.
Yeah, wake up, go buy some stuff, come back, fall asleep again. It's like what, 10 hours, 15 hours. And this went on.
And are you attending class at this time?
No, I didn't attend class. I
So
did
you're
not
just
have
keeping
the
classes.
energy. I knew there was something fundamentally wrong. I couldn't put a finger on it.
Right.
Nobody exactly understood it. I didn't want to spend any time with people.
Right.
I just withdrew. And I went through this phase. And then, sometime after 1.5 months or something like that.
Right.
Like I woke up and, it's like my mind had rebooted. And at that moment,
But for this whole month and a half, no support,
no
nothing,
energy, nothing.
You don't understand what's going on.
I don't want to be with my friends, whatever it is, just always sleeping and thinking, and I wake up, I walk. But when I came out of that slumber, I was so clear that, okay, pharmacy, not my thing.
That's not what I want to
I
do.
was very clear about that.
Right.
And the clarity which I had, trust me, not my mom's iron will, not the fact that every single person I asked, would tell me this is just actually you're destroying your life. Like it did not matter. Like I was so clear that
You
this
made up your
is
mind.
not it.
Right.
So I was very clear that, okay, I knew now this computer and this entrepreneurship, that's where it is. But I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do.
Right.
So
this is, you're doing pharmacy, this is the first year still.
Yeah, this is now the second year.
You're on the second year.
I'm repeating the first year now.
Right.
So now this is year 1.5 in University of Nairobi, Chiromo.
Right.
So when I made that decision, I was very clear. Went out, sat down with our dean.
Right.
Made actually a lot of effort to switch to computer science in Nairobi. I'm like, okay, fine, crappy institution.
Yeah.
The way that it was organized at the time.
Right.
And whatever it is, but maybe I can move to the faculty. It's computers at least. There's something I can enjoy.
Yep.
Went in there, and then they told me I had to now go back to another year, so I was going to lose 3 years.
Oh.
I tried to make a strong case that, look, guys, I've done 2 years of Strathmore. I was
Yep.
first-class student.
Right.
Like, that surely...
Pick this and allow me just to proceed.
I've done math. I've done it's a very good comparison. I'm like, okay, computer science, these are the units,
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
I've done these ones in Strathmore.
Yeah.
Here are my certificates.
Yep.
This one, I've done maths in pharmacy.
Yep.
Here are my grades.
Yep.
Like, there are 2 or 3 things.
Yep.
Let me get into the same year with my guys.
Right.
And then let me bridge these things.
Right.
And let me do the exams. And if you tell me, look, you have to pass these things by next semester, so be it.
Yep.
The guys looked at me like I was just from a different planet.
They are hearing none of it.
They're like, what? Where are you coming from? Just go back to first year.
Right.
You've made a grade, to be in the university
Yep.
and to be in the faculty.
Right.
But you have to go back to first year. I did the math. College was closing, because of riots and so on. I said, man, I'm going to be graduating when I'm 29.
No
I
way.
just said, man, when I look at Steve Jobs and Bill Gates,
Yep.
at 29, they were running companies
Yeah.
that were ruling the world.
Right.
I just said, no, that's not my portion.
Yep.
So
You're not taking that path.
very difficult decision that I quit. Then the family drama started. Right, committees after committees after committees.
To deal with this guy.
To deal with this guy.
Yeah.
My mom, she had moved to Europe at that time. She was working in Geneva.
Right.
So she was just told, mtoto wako amekataa shule.
Kuja ongea na mtoto wako.
So we one day, I just had a frank discussion with my. I just said, Mom, do you suspect I'm taking drugs? She said, no.
Okay.
I said, okay. Do you suspect that socially that there's something that's off? I said, no.
Yeah.
I said, then you have to trust your parenting.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You did a good job.
Yeah. You got to trust
You raised me well.
how you raised me.
Right.
Yeah. And so my mom then, she was, so what do you want to do? In fact, yesterday she was telling us a story with some guys on the table.
Yeah.
So she explains, she said, I just did not understand what the guy was saying.
Right.
But she just said she got comfort from one thing.
Right.
That she just I was very consistent in what I told her.
Right.
She didn't understand it.
Yep.
But it was always the same story.
Right.
And it was about just the type of business I wanted to build in the computer universe and so on. So I went through that. So that was you could say that was maybe the first fundamental point of transition, of change.
Right.
In where I started to really take very strong decisions that then drove my life in a very different way.
Correct.
So by that time, Strathmore had another 1-year program extension to the computers I'd done. So I went back to Strathmore. That was a 1-year full-time program. I did that.
Yep.
And then went out and got a job. By then, I was already technically up because I loved it.
Yep.
So I spent a lot of time on it. I was already, by the time I was in high school, living in my mom's house, my mom would do anything to get books. Right? We couldn't afford them. But I remember my mom taking to second-hand trading places and so on and so forth. So I really, the hunger for knowledge, learning and so on and so forth was already instilled in a long. So going back to Strathmore for that period of time for something I really loved, I really became really good and competent in very early.
Right.
So when I went to the market, I could pick any job I wanted.
Right.
Because I was already, I'd already started to take a leaning for the internet. And in that way, I then became very knowledgeable. So went out, got a first internship with one of the ISPs, early ISPs at the time.
Right.
Then got promoted really rapidly and then got poached into another ISP. So by the time I was 23, I was running a subsidiary of one of the second largest ISP at the time. So during
at 23.
At 23. So that process gave me the technical grounding, understanding the internet, how the internet worked, and so on, and the opportunities and so on.
Right.
But remember, I'd been exposed to Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. So
back at the initial point of
okay, now that I've mastered, I have a good foundation on the internet.
Yep.
But I want to be an internet entrepreneur. I want to build a business.
Right.
So I ran into a couple of partners, who then became my first partners at 3 Mice in the first company I set up.
Correct.
And 1 year down the line, sometime in late 98, we started the first company, 3 Mice. At the time we were doing, it was like revolutionary at that time.
Right.
Sort of building these websites that were being driven by data and program that there had a lot of complex programming underneath, connecting to ERPs and so on and so forth. People used to think those things were out of this world.
Right.
So we actually pioneered a lot of that space and became...
And these are 24, 25-year-old young guys.
Exactly. So then we became the guys and we built quite a phenomenal brand. 3 Mice was very well known. I meet today guys that I say, well, that thing, I heard about 3 Mice when I was in campus and it inspired me. It was very interesting. So we did that, and we did that for 5 years, built a good business. It's amazing,
Ken. I mean, 24, 25-year-old guys doing big stuff. And you had big clients at the same time.
Yeah. So 3 Mice became, if basically you're a big business and you are not working with 3 Mice, you probably didn't know what you are doing. So we built quite a good reputation. Right? And was a very good learning point.
Absolutely.
And for me, from a career point of view, was fantastic learning how the world works.
Right.
Because I was very curious about our customers' businesses.
Right.
And so on. So that was a fantastic journey, you could say. So that was, post high school, just navigating that transition from college the working world into the entrepreneurship world.
Right.
And it happened in a very, very short time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And blew up to become...
Yeah. It gave me a good foundation for what my life became.
Man, that's amazing. I mean, when I think about 3 Mice, so it was 3 partners at the time. Right. Yeah. So you start off 3 Mice and the 3 partners go on, get big companies, start doing stuff. At what point did you then fold up or rather exit, and how did you exit from 3 Mice to then eventually start? And how did Cellulant also start?
Yeah. So 3 Mice, so we did that for 5 years.
Yep.
Built a business that had a lot of blue chip customers.
Right.
But we never made any money, and that was always a puzzle in my mind. Because it's like, how can we work so hard? Our customers are incredibly excited about our work. But just somehow every month we are always struggling to pay salaries, and they are always late, and that had become our story. Like, it was a struggle. And by then, also, still our salaries were small. So we'd lose great talent. After some time, you lose them to bigger companies. So it had become this, and I was a technical guy. So I took care of the work and so on. So this business thing, I became curious about. It's like, how does the money side of it work? I wasn't quite sure, but I knew that, like, it just doesn't. Like, we can't, this is not sustainable that you can continue to work over time, and you always feel like you're making a lot of progress by reputation, the types of customers, the types of work that
But
you're
it
doing.
doesn't translate
But the
into...
numbers just don't make
So
make
today,
sense.
in hindsight, when you look back, what do you think you guys missed then?
Our business model, we never spend time defining how we charge and how we make money. Yeah, it's just as simple as that.
Right.
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 And I'll tell you how it shaped my mindset when I was building Cellular. So we went through that struggle. Eventually, then we got bought by African.
And this was for 5 years.
Yes, we did that for 5 years.
And you know, even before, why this is important for me is because we also have a lot of young guys today who also equally start tech businesses.
Yeah.
And I can tell you for sure, tech businesses will be all over the place.
Yes.
The question of sustainability then becomes important.
Correct.
And if then our commercial modeling of it does not then sit correctly, then I
Yeah.
think that piece becomes a useful lesson for a lot of them.
Correct.
That are just checking this out.
Very important.
Yeah.
Because and you set these things in the foundation of the business.
Right.
If you don't get them right, because it's if you're building a 5-story house.
Right.
You only have one chance to build the right foundation for 5 stories.
Right.
You can't dig a foundation for a bungalow. Then somewhere after the roof, you're like, no, I want to do 4 stories. You can't fix a foundation.
Right.
You cannot.
Once you start going up,
once you start going up,
Yep.
you either have the right foundation to support you or you don't.
Yep.
So in the early years, I think the biggest lesson there was that you have to think through. There are a couple of pieces that form the foundation.
Right.
And and in my mind, they are one. The vision, what kind of business, character, essence of the business, and its place in the world do you want to build? You must be very clear about that. So that it's like, what is the reason that the business exists?
Its purpose.
And that has to come deeply from your own wishes. Remember,
Right.
so what has been my purpose across all my businesses? I just wanted to prove, I think to me, that you can come from a single parent family, and
Right.
therefore that means any background,
Right.
and really build something great. For
So
me,
your background then limits you.
yeah, for me, that I can say, if you say, what was the reason for 3 Miles to exist? What was my reason for Cellular to exist? Was that, that, you can come from whatever background, Nakuru, whatever it is, and things like that, and you can build something great.
Right.
And yes, my dad left me when I was 5. I got chased out of school with school fees. When I came to Nairobi, I couldn't speak English.
Right.
All of that is true.
Yep.
But if I say that then those things are going to prevent me from doing great stuff, then actually fundamentally is an excuse.
Right.
In fact, for me, I had in the early days, I've had rough conversations with staff members. I've got this sorry story. And I listen to the guy, I just say, do you know, if I tell you my story is sorrier than yours. So boss, snap out of it.
Get past it.
And sit
Get
there
over it, my
and
friend.
listen very calmly. I just say, you know what, boss? Actually, if I told you my story,
Yeah.
it is actually sadder than yours.
Yeah.
But you know what?
Yep.
Snap out of it.
Right.
You got to decide whether you're living in the past
Yep.
or you want to create a future.
And it's
that's
critical.
in your hands.
And that's critical, man.
Yeah, it is in your hands.
Take
So
a
you
decision.
decide.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you decide you want to be great, we have a place for you here.
Right.
But if you decide
You want to live in your past?
that your family left you and all sorts of things, I always used to have a conversation. I say that's your pastor's problem.
Yeah. I am not your
fix
pastor.
I can't feel, do I look like your pastor? Maybe not.
Yeah.
Make it. So the thing is that you can come from whatever background,
Right.
and you really push yourself. But you have to make that decision.
Yep.
So I think that's what I call the company reason for being strong, fundamental in foundation. Why was that? Let me tell you, Dennis, knowing that thing is what carried me through the most difficult times in the business. And there were very, very difficult times. No question about it. But you wake up and you look at it and just say, man, what is this story that's going to be written?
Right.
Yeah, people are going to say that, no, you have to come from Lavington, you have to know some guys
Right.
to succeed. Look at that guy
Right.
from Nakuru who had the audacity to think that
imagine
he
he
could do
can.
it. Look at that guy now.
Yeah.
that thing, it gives you, it taps you into your reserves in a way like you cannot believe.
Right. Right.
So I said, so reason for being is going to give you the resilience you need in the very tough times, because
Correct.
it reminds you why exactly this must succeed.
Right. Right.
And second, great team. you build great businesses with great teams. It's a team sport, right? So very early on,
team sports.
Yes, and very early on, you can't afford the great talent.
Right.
So, but you must relentlessly sell your vision.
Correct.
Right? Like when people understand your reason for being, you will find a guy that you can't afford. It listens to that thing.
Connect
it's
with
like,
it.
I want, when that story is written,
I want to be
my
part
name
of
should
that
be there.
thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, people, so in 3 miles in Cellulant, incredibly talented people left, took pay cuts.
Right.
Came to Cellulant, came to 3 miles.
Right.
Worked for without any salary guarantees.
Right.
Because me, I tell guys, you know, you got your nice job, that's nice, but here you take a salary cut.
Right.
And there's going to be times when we have no salaries. Don't ask me where it's coming from. We are going to figure it out. It's going to come from here. You know the circumstances.
Right.
So, but I was very clear that you don't build an exceptional business on secondary teams.
It's got to be fast.
Yeah, and in the early days, you know, we're a small team. We all sat in one desk and whatever it is and things like that. If you are not great, if I'd made a mistake, you know, chances are that you probably didn't last past a couple of days.
Right.
This was a big problem because even when Cellulant used to be a big company, I'd run into some people in the lift and then we chat. Then somebody gathers the courage and says, so, sir, can I ask you one question?
Yeah.
And they say, yeah. He said, so is it true that you fire people in the lift? So I'd laugh. I tell them, you know, I used to.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when the company was small.
Yeah.
But to be fair to me,
Yeah.
I don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Have you had anyone? And then we'd laugh about it and whatever it is.
Yeah.
But it was actually true. In the early days,
Yep.
like, if you are not great, you're out.
Yep. We don't have tolerance for.
Yeah, so you build a company with great guys.
Right.
Then you got to figure out how the business makes money.
Right.
And
The
I think-
commercial model.
Yeah,
of
the
it.
commercial model.
Right.
And the Kenyans, I think, but I see this as a thing we have as Kenyans. Kenyans, we fear having money discussions. You just do, even when you're talking to somebody who's doing, let's say, repairs at home and you say, so how much do you charge? You can see that he has a valuable service, but it gives you a price, then you're like, okay.
It's a lot.
Like how is he making the ends meet? Like how is he going to scale?
Right.
Because he does a good job,
Yep.
he should charge a premium.
Absolutely.
But even when he's charging a premium, he's apologetic. He's telling you, I'll charge you 5K, but we can negotiate.
We can negotiate,
Like,
yes.
So it's sending a signal that he has not really sat down to then say, and we did that at 3 miles.
Right.
We were not confident enough of our pricing, and yet we had the best work in the market.
Right.
And to figure out how to make money. And by the way, when we started to figure that out, you know, we used to do maybe at that time about 2 million bob per project.
Right.
But in my final, when I started to really think about this stuff, we went back to the same customer and said, no, we're going to charge you 2 million bob retainer
Yep.
per month. So customers, they're like, but fine.
It's all right.
So it means what? You are all along, the last 4 years,
You've
5
been
years.
shortchanging yourself the entire time.
You've been shortchanging.
Right.
So because of that, then the thing just doesn't click. So just that thing of saying, how do I charge? How do I make money? What is the value for my service? You know, people generally don't think hard about it. So I think those are 3 sort of foundational stuff. And then the other thing about partnerships.
Yep.
One of the things I've come to realize about partnerships, and that was actually what, 3 miles in the end, as a journey ended because the partnership generally didn't connect. Most people do partnerships because of sometimes you have something I don't have, so let's partner together,
Yes.
let's start something.
Complement each other.
Yeah. The problem with that is that that is very short-lived. It lasts a year, maybe 2, and it will not hold.
Right.
Great partnerships are first founded on values. And values, not in a very strong sense, is that, you know, do you believe what I believe about the world? So a good partner is like it's essentially like a wife. It's the same thing. In fact, most entrepreneurs, they ask me, so Ken, how do I get a good partner? I say, sir, I can see you're married.
Yep.
It is exactly the same process.
It's almost like a marriage partner.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
It is the same process. So you're generally looking but not looking.
Yep.
right? And you have a list
Right.
of qualities you're looking for,
Yep.
but it's not. There's a list.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
And it's the same thing. And then ultimately, it's a combination of looking. It's a combination of dating. You have to be like, let's get a sense of what's out there.
Correct.
You have to, there's a process of matchmaking. You don't jump into business. We meet at the pub. Wow, fantastic.
And
you
we
can
start
bring capital. You've got contacts, and then we can do. No, that's not how you marry.
Right.
You date for a bit.
Right.
And sometimes it doesn't work.
Right.
It's the same thing.
Right.
So values, shared values, is by far the most important thing, and it's what people don't make the time for and don't approach it in that way. So, because values will define whether you when the tough times come, both of you resilient. Do you believe in this dream big enough to do everything you can to make it survive?
Right.
And that's where the cracks come.
Right.
So shared vision, shared values,
Right.
those will last the longest.
Right.
Shared vision, when we think about this company 5 years, 10 years from today, do we have an aligned vision of what it will become? And people also, you'll be shocked, Dennis, how many people don't discuss that. So some people start a business and they are thinking about it as a wallet. For me, when I started the business, I was very clear that the business was going to pay me nothing for a long time. But remember, why did I start it? I started it to prove that a simple boy from Nakuru, and in fact, in some circles, an African, can really build something great.
From a single parent family, can build.
There are no excuses.
Right.
We can build a world-class company that competes with world-class technology companies, and we started it ourselves. So that person who thinks like that, who thinks about the business that way, versus somebody else who thinks that, wow, I'm now going to own most of the many flats in Nairobi. Those people inherently
very different people.
Very different people. And they will look at the business and expectations of the business very different.
Right.
One, when you make $2 million profit, will say, hey, let's split this 50-50.
Absolutely.
The other person will say, hey, now let's go to Ethiopia.
Right.
Let's go and buy a business in Ethiopia.
Correct.
It's very different.
Let's reach more people.
Correct.
Right.
Shared vision, super important. And then, of course, if you get complementary, great. So this is my thinking and my theory and my observation.
Right.
If you have complementary, if you only partnered for complementary skill sets, that partnership will last about 2 years. Because sooner or later, the business will need more from you. Right. When I started Cellulant, I was a technology guy. As I retired from Cellulant in April, I was not a technology guy. I understood technology, but I was a very different animal.
Right.
The business required me to become something different and to acquire certain different skills and so on and so forth.
Right.
So complementary skill sets is not going to last long because the business is going to outgrow both of you very quickly, or three of you very quickly.
Right.
Vision, how long you guys are aligned in terms of vision will determine how far the company goes. When we started Cellulant, we wanted to build $1 billion business in Africa for Africa by Africans. That was fundamentally a 20-year vision. So because of that, you're incredibly patient. I only bought a house, Dennis, last year.
Wow.
But all this time, when I visited my shosho, my wife, my shosho from my wife's side, very sweet lady, and she passed on. In the end, she would just be asking me in Kikuyu, ko moikaraga ne kwanyu? Every time.
Yes.
So culturally, I was not successful. I'm like this. So my relatives would be looking at, they're like, so this guy runs well, but he's not actually quite successful.
Yeah.
Because then, like, why is he still renting? Like, what about this story?
Right. There's something that is not adding up. Yep.
So vision, vision defines how you think about a company. So we wanted to build $1 billion company, that was not for me. So for me, it mattered not that I didn't have a house. I knew that once this company is $1 billion, it was going to take care of me somehow,
take care of whatever it is.
But
absolutely.
my fundamental goal is to get it there.
Right.
So vision is is important. So vision is because it determines actually how far you go. Values is by far the most enduring because values don't change.
Right.
I believed in sort of never building a corrupt company.
Right.
Because, I mean, I was beaten for having coins I could not explain where they came from. Like it was
Right from early on.
from when I was young.
Right.
Yeah, my mom, I remember some time back I was dressing and then they were going tingling. My mom called me from her bedroom.
Right, come.
He's like, so where did you get this money?
Right.
Then I tell her, it's another guy. I'm keeping for him.
Yep.
She said, let's go.
Yep.
Dress and let's go. So I was dragged at 6 o'clock in the morning.
To go validate that.
Across town. To go to that kid's house to validate that story that is his money. In the end, it didn't turn out to be his money. It was a very nasty experience.
Oh my
for
goodness.
Me. But you come out of there, I'm like, man, I can't see myself in a
it's a
situation
power
where
value instilled right
exactly,
there.
that I'm sitting in somewhere at Cellular discussing a deal with a government official somewhere in West Africa. Like I can't. I just can't.
That's just not you. Goes against your values.
Yeah. So that doesn't change.
Right.
From when Cellular was 2 people, 100 people, and
Right.
so on.
Right.
So values are by far the most enduring.
Correct.
So you have always to then make sure that in your partnerships that you align on the values, like what matters to you guys, right? And you have to look into each other's eyes and to just say, okay, that we really believe when we say that we don't do corruption, that actually are we aligned on that?
And it's a statement of conviction.
It's a statement of conviction because of that, never at anyone time. So you go for projects because his value is aligned. Somebody comes, it's a $5 million project, but you can see it has a bit of corruption. Like you walk out, and you walk out, and you just go and have coffee and say, "Wow, man, that could have been sweet."
Yep.
Silly guys. Anyway, let's go and work tomorrow. Like there's no discussion, there's no debate. And that's a good thing about values. Like you instinctively know what you will do and what you cannot do.
Right.
There's never a debate. When values are fundamentally there, then it really forms a very powerful platform for the business. So these are super, super important.
Ken, man, I mean, I've got to stop you there because it's not many people who believe you still can do a value-driven business. That you can talk about, I'm in business, working with many partners. Corruption is not part of how we do business. We are not exchanging envelopes for businesses to move on. I mean, that's not common in this part of the world, I think.
It's not, all right? But if you go back to my reason for being.
Right.
The reason why I started Cellulant myself and then my co-founders and so on, what is it that drove me as a person in the founding journey? I just said, hey, you know what? So, single parent, come from there, but also love for Africa. You asked me, who am I? And I said, I fundamentally have a love for Africa. What has destroyed Africa? Corruption is one of them. So for me, I think the desire to prove that actually maybe, you can actually succeed without having to be corrupt. I mean, it was so deep-seated. That's how I show my love for the continent, right? And actually, that's what defined the scale for Cellular. So I argued that, if we're a $10 million business that's not corrupt, you look around, there'll be a richer, more corrupt guy.
Correct.
At $100 million in Nigeria, there'll be a richer, more corrupt guy.
Absolutely.
But I said, man, if we're young Africans, we succeeded at $1 billion for a business that has no corruption. Like, man.
Sense of pride.
Yeah, like what excuse do we have?
Right.
Like, you can't argue that that's successful.
Right.
At $1 billion.
Right. Right. Successful.
And then you say, yes, you can be from a single parent, come from whatever background. We started this business with no money. So you can't say, no money, so it's an excuse. I started this business without knowing anybody. Like, so I'm not a son of a minister, whatever it is, and things like that.
Right.
So not an excuse.
Right.
Founded this no values, no corruption, not an excuse. So you can't tell me to succeed you have to be corrupt.
Right.
No. No.
Then hold water.
It's an excuse as well.
Right.
And then we built $1 billion business that there can be no debate about those values.
Right.
Like you can actually do it. So, look, has it been difficult? Yes. But we knew, but the good thing about it is that we knew it was going to take time. So I was not in a hurry.
Right.
And my reason for being was not to make money.
Right.
I knew I was going to, I knew that if the business was going to be $1 billion business, I'd be incredibly wealthy.
Right.
So that's the thing. But I also knew that you want to build a business on these values, it was going to take a little longer than normal.
Right.
So today when I meet young guys and so I remember, at a conference, I ran into some young guys, they're like, hey, so Ken, hey man, look, like, where's the money? Let's discuss. So I looked at them, so very serious, and I said, do you have time?
Yeah.
Do you have time? And they're like, what do you mean? I said, no, if you actually, maybe you can be asking me that question just as a figure of speech.
Yeah.
But if you seriously want to engage on that question,
we need to sit down.
Yeah,
you've got to have some time.
Yeah.
Right.
Because, and so this kid almost relaxed, sat down.
Yep.
And I told him, where's the money? I said, no problem. I'm probably very wealthy on paper, but my cash rich. Will I drive if I park my car there? Are you gonna notice? Not really.
Yeah.
I said, so it takes a long time for you to feel the money in your pocket.
Right.
They're like, I can see
shock
in their eyes. So I look at the guy and say, okay, I know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
I told him,
don't like that.
I told him, I know what you're thinking.
Yeah.
I told him, don't worry. I'm as smart as they come.
Yep.
I said, I'm not trying to be arrogant.
Yep.
But generally, I'm incredibly smart.
Absolutely.
I have a good sense.
Yeah.
I work hard, I read hard, and so on. So don't think that that you're smarter.
Yeah, there's no deficiency of smarts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number two,
Yep.
I work incredibly hard.
Right.
So don't give me this work smart, work hard.
Yeah.
The work smart bullshit. That maybe
you think you're working harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I told them, I'm incredibly resilient.
Right.
I said, I come from a family where we generally had nothing, so I'm generally used to hard times.
Right.
So I said, I don't think that you can withstand harder times than I am.
Right.
So when I tell you it takes 18 years,
Yep.
I say, I accept.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe your journey might be luckier and you take 15.
Right.
Maybe your journey might be luckier and you take 10.
Yep.
But I can tell you for a fact,
Yep.
it's not going to be 3 years. The
Right.
3 years that you think.
It doesn't come like that.
I can tell you,
Yep.
you can't outwork, out-resilient this guy.
Yeah.
And then God distributes luck equally.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely. So it can't be the 3 years you think it's going to be.
No.
It's going to take longer than that.
It's going to take
longer than that.
It's going to take longer.
Yep.
So calm down.
Yep.
Hunker down.
Right.
Calm down.
Get ready for the journey.
Get ready for the
It's
journey.
going to be a long one.
It's going to be a long one.
Yeah, brace yourself
and
up.
enjoy it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah.
There's something very embossment. You've said very many profound things. I mean, we could unpack each of these. For example, when you even talk about starting that business at the early age, but knowing there's no substitute for good talent. Many people at that point where they're starting, they arguably don't have the capital.
Yeah.
They have a compelling vision. How do they then draw this talent? And just packaging that story in a way that then it is both believable, but even the talent that comes stays as well to then build it up together with you.
Yeah. Okay, so 2 things.
Yep.
One, and I'll give you a story of what happened.
Right.
One of my senior leaders now. So number one, you as a entrepreneur, founder, and whatever it is, have to be convinced actually that you need talent.
Right.
You have to be convinced that the business needs for you to be incredibly good at 5. You're only good at 1, right? And then you have a half-baked idea of everything else. You have to understand that, and that takes a lot of humility, right? To understand that, being a vision bearer didn't make you a finance expert.
Correct.
And you're never going to be a great one,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
You can be a great technology guy. I was a great technology guy, but that's it.
Yep.
So you have to really understand that.
Yep.
Then you have to understand then the other 4 skill sets that I need. Those skill sets you have to think about them as partners. They're not coming to work for you. And since the best if I'm a technology guy, the best finance guy is not coming to work for me. I can't look at the world. I'm actually looking for somebody who brings a different skill set, who their contribution to the business is equal. You think about it very differently.
Yep.
And that means actually that the way you go out to find them, the types of people that you're looking for, what you're willing to give so that they can join, because you have no money, but you own 100% of the damn vision.
Right.
Right?
Right.
You can dish it out.
Yep.
Dennis, I'd be now 5 times wealthier.
Yep.
If I kept all of the loot to myself, right, like all the shares and so on and so forth, I'd probably be 5 times wealthier.
Right.
But also you could argue that I'd have 5 times my shareholding for a much smaller.
Much smaller organization.
Correct.
Absolutely.
So you have 100% of the equity.
Yep.
And you have clarity of vision.
Right.
That's equity. You've got to be sharing it.
Right.
You've got to be, when you go out to the CTO, you've got to tell them, listen, man, I want you to come and contribute to this building the vision, but I'm prepared to share this cake.
A bit of that stick.
Yeah,
right.
That's all I have.
Right.
And then,
wow, okay.
And then, in terms of how you manage them, you have to be respectful that you're the vision bearer.
Right.
They are coming, in a sense, to report to you.
Right.
But you have to treat them as partners.
Right.
So that means information sharing.
Right.
You put the context in. It's like information sharing, all context, make collective decisions very early. And look, if you do that, you go out and you put that in front of 10 people.
Right.
9 people will just look at you. They're like, what the hell is this guy talking about? But one guy will just say, interesting. I will take this.
They connect with something.
Yeah, and today I'll give you an example of one of our senior leaders. And so he's actually leads a commercial team.
Right.
He joined us many years ago. He was in his 2nd year.
Right.
And so he says, his first journey in the cellular, and this was must have been back in 2005, 2006, dirty warehouse somewhere in Lavington. So he came, so he was referred to me, talked, we arranged an interview, came by. Then he came, I was sort of in a meeting, and then he came, so he looked at this place, a dirty warehouse. And we were in, somebody had given us some space in Lavington. On one side were, hundreds of second-hand broken computers, like, it looked like a store.
Right.
There was a big dip, it used to be a flour processing, so there was a big dip, then it was dusty, the floor looked like this. Then there were broken seats, the seat was broken, we had a broken thing,
right.
Broken seats, and some guys there sort of intensely doing stuff, so he's looking around, waiting for me.
Yep.
I don't know what the hell I was dealing with. And so came down now to meet him 4 hours. So he waited for 4 hours.
Right.
So he said, he had landing, looking at this thing. He was very clear that, okay, I'm not working.
It doesn't look like it.
Then wait for 4 hours and whatever. So it's very clear.
Yeah, it's
that,
not, this is not
This is not it.
Right.
Whatever it is and
right.
things like that.
Right.
Then eventually I sat with him. And when I sat with him, I said, I'm so sorry, whatever it is. Then in a hurry started to fire questions at the guy.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And yeah, in those younger years, man, we were on adrenaline. So I was a little bit of a rough character.
Right.
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 Of course, my senior leadership, you joke with them. They just say, well, Ken says he was a rough character. Did he ever change?
That was you ever changed.
I'm not sure. So I fired these questions like
right.
probe.
Yep.
Then so this is his story. He says, I was very clear that this is not the thing and I'm not working for this guy. So he's just like, okay, I'm just going to bid my time.
Yep.
So that the guy that introduced me to this guy,
yep.
I can go and tell him, no, I met your guy.
We met.
Not my thing.
Yeah.
Tick that box.
And thank you for having connected, but no thanks.
So at the end of the thing, so the guy asked me, so he just asked me, so where do you want to take this business?
Yep.
So he says, I looked at him, no flinch in his eyes.
Yep.
No flinch in my eyes. I told him I want to build $1 billion business in Africa, for Africa, by Africa.
Right.
So this it's the first time it sort of got him like, huh?